I study sleep at a little university in a town that shall remain unnamed for the sake of our research. Recently, the influx of patients we've been getting have been experiencing the same thing that triggers dreams and events that mirror each other. The below transcription is the most recent in the few cases we've had. The patient, whose name has been altered, was found by a neighbor after failing to return a call in the middle of the night. What I hope to achieve from this post is some answers. This phenomenon is getting too much for our town, and people here are too scared to even turn on the TV. I need all the help I can get. Our team isn't big enough for this type of work. The severity of whatever this is weighing on all of us. Please help.
Opening the door to my small apartment after a long day at work was always the happiest part of my day. Greeting my old English bulldog, Sumo, had to tie for second. That day was no different as I walked into the living room, patting Sumo on the head. He barked and began to wag that little nub where his tail was supposed to be. I dropped the pull bag on the table and plopped onto the couch. My sunburned skin was dry and I was uncomfortable in it. I flipped the TV on and switched through the channels as Sumo curled up next to me. I'm an ordinary guy by nature and I typically don't like to be around people. I like to joke Sumo is the only one who understands me. It's funny because my job was a lifeguard and I was around people daily, but the pay was good and my swim background from high school helped me land the job easily. It was an order out kind of night, so I called the local pizzeria and ordered a large pepperoni pizza, extra breadsticks too, for a job well done. As colorful channels flew past me, I lost track of time and almost didn't hear the knock at my door. Somebody on the outside said, delivery for Mr. Colby? As well as ordinary, I'm also cautious, so I unlocked the locks and opened the door to see a woman in a delivery uniform holding my dinner in her hands. I thanked her, paid, and closed the door behind me. I'm beat, buddy, I remember telling Sumo. What should we watch tonight? I'm thinking an old western, I said as I sat on the couch next to him. The rest of the night was filled with old movies, and I think the little guy really liked them, or he just really liked the breadsticks I shared with him. We both dozed off as a dark, dreamless sleep took over me. It's not weird for me to not dream. I've just never been the type of guy to. I remember being comfortable even though an hour earlier I wanted to rip my skin off. Sumo woke me up by getting off the couch and I opened my eyes to find a strange channel on my TV. In bold letters on the screen were the words, "Sleep test. Do not close your eyes." I stared at the screen in awe. I never had seen this channel on my TV before, but I was intrigued. The flashing words were replaced by a swirly black and white screen. The types you see when you try to hypnotize someone. I remember thinking how weird this sleep test was. I mean, what the hell was a sleep test anyway? What came next was a screen that told me to look directly at the little red dot in the middle of the TV. I jumped when the faces of my family flashed up next. My mom, dad, sisters, and deceased brother Val rapidly flashing on and off. I couldn't take my eyes off the dot. The pictures of them were distorted and unrecognizable. I started to tear up looking at them. The rapid color flashes and changing faces put my mind into a state of agony. Just as quickly as they showed up, they were gone in a flash. I blinked as the loading screen from the beginning of the program came on. A sleep test completed, it said. Dream easy. The clock underneath the TV showed 3:13 a.m., and I was beside myself after the program. I had no idea what it was, and thinking about the distortion and horror of my family's faces made me sick. The crazy part was Val had been dead for almost 10 years, and when I moved, I told no one about him. I wanted to lock that part of me away and start fresh with just me and Sumo. I turned off the TV and walked into the bathroom, splashed some water on my face, and I went to bed. Sumo hopped into the bed with me right as my eyes fluttered shut. I awoke at the pool that I worked at, sitting in my lifeguard chair high above the murky water. Kids screamed and parents scolded. I looked over at the wild slide at the far end of the pool to see Val standing with a floaty. He was waiting for me. Climbing down the ladder, I couldn't help but feel weightless and free. I felt 10 years younger, and Val looked like he always did, brown hair and brown eyes glittering in the sun. We ascended the slide and took the floaty up. Water splashed on my face as we proceeded to get on and go down the twisty slide. Val screamed and laughed like he was having the time of his life, and I imitated my brother like old times. We made it to the bottom right as my dad came up beside us. He said, "You boys go take a walk, we'll be leaving soon." And he walked away with my youngest sister. I looked at Val and we ran over to the park beside the pool. A stray cat caught our attention and we chased after it. It was like I was a kid again. And I found myself missing Val even though he was right next to me. We made it to large apartments lined up against the edge of the pool. I found a cigarette lighter and messed around with it as Val began to find all sorts of strange things like razor blades and used needles. I began to feel sick, and it seemed like the world became darker. A man in a janitor's uniform approached us and asked if we knew where all the stuff came from. Of course, we said that we didn't. I remember him saying he had something more fun to show us and called for us to follow. We walked with him for what seemed like ages, and the sun began to set. Instead of the pool yard, we winded up the park and made it to an abandoned food court area that I had never seen. The large black fence that sheltered the pool from the outsiders was right next to me and my brother as the man disappeared behind it. I remember hearing my dad calling our names, and we ran towards the sound. Just before we could reach him, the man came out from behind the fence and grabbed us, taking us somewhere unknown. I can't remember us struggling at all, only waking up in a pitch black room. My head felt dizzy as I saw Val and I strung up in a cross-like manner. It was like we were strung up like a marionette or something. The man who had taken us before came in the little light that there was. Instead of his navy uniform, he had darker clothes and slicked black hair. He was sporting what I thought was white makeup and false teeth, but they looked so real. He whispered random words and threw his arms up in the air, glaring at us as he spoke deep and called us his sacrifices. Revealing words that I couldn't understand, he brought the leather they were engraved in close to our exposed arms. The man pulled out hammer and nails and brought it down onto Val's skin with so much force it ripped my brother apart like a vulture picking at dead meat. Tears streamed down my brother's face as nails went in and out of his skin like a disgusting tattoo. The man laughed and chanted as he ruined my brother. I managed to look over at the words by my arm, but I couldn't make out what it said or what it meant. Everything was so blurry. Meanwhile, Val cried and begged. I was stuck, frozen in time. The only thing I could see was this man's ghostly face. Then my alarm went off. I awoke with a quick breath and jumped up. My face was wet with tears and sweat from last night's endeavor. I looked around my room to see Sumo sitting by the door waiting to go out. I breathed a sigh of relief. Only a dream, I thought. And with that, I got ready for the day. The next day was longer than before, and the dream I had that night before haunted me. I couldn't escape the feeling of dread I felt as I walked into my job. I must not have looked so hot because the manager asked if I wanted to take a sick day. Truly, I didn't feel the greatest, so I took her up on that offer and traveled back to the safety of my home to sit on the couch with Sumo for the rest of the day. I strolled down the busy street, but people's faces looked off, like a simulation of some sort. I was dizzy. The faces were distorted and just flat out wrong. It was scary, and all I wanted to do was get back to Sumo. I quickened my pace as I passed a group of people in dark clothes. Sumo kissed me as I walked through the door and made it to my couch. I felt heavy when I sat down, sicker than usual, and all I wanted to do was sleep. Just before sitting down, I got a knock at my door. It was light but determined. Sumo growled as I opened it. The last thing I remember is being struck in the head with something. I woke up to Sumo's lifeless body. His fur was drenched in blood and matted. I watched my best friend take his last breath that day. I remember looking around to see my apartment ransacked. I was pinned to the ground by some force and my arms were in a T-pose. I fainted when the same man from my dream walked out of my bedroom, hands up in the air, worshiping. He was saying things I couldn't understand. The last thing I remember is waking up in the hospital. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive. They didn't believe that I could have lost that much blood and arm and still be alive. I don't believe them. You know, that's all I'm saying after this. I can't bear to think of Sumo at all in my condition. You're lucky I...
The patient expresses severe trauma. Loss of a dog is a trigger, requesting a follow-up appointment with hospital permission, progress at opening up, different from the last patient, right arm missing, contrary to the 006's left. Ask about TV next time. May be key to getting to the bottom of this mysterious event. Until next time.